technically versed. So this session is geared towards people who are not technically versed, but they want to advocate for AI in their organization, right? So we want to be able to spot opportunities. We want to be able to build a proof of concept. I'm going to explain what's that shortly. And we want to convince top management or convince our teammates that this problem we found is worth using AI for. So that's exactly what we're going to learn together today. So just a quick introduction about me. My name is Basant Munir. I'm AI practice lead at the Central Bank of Egypt. So I'm responsible for building the AI practice in the bank and deploying enterprise-wide AI applications to help automate tedious workflows. And I'm a mentor and lecturer at the MIT Professional Education. So we have an applied data science and AI program. I lecture and mentor in this program. All right, so that's a quick introduction about me. Now, quick introduction about our session. So I usually like to answer questions in the 5 W's plus H. So we just said that, first of all, we need to spot opportunities. So we need to know when to use AI, right? That's the first thing we need to see. How can I spot opportunities in the organization and say, okay, this is a problem that AI can solve? That's the first part of today's session. The second part, after I spot the opportunity for the AI, how can I actually build something simple to see its value, right? So I want to build something simple to see the value and show others the value so they can feel the value of the AI application. We're going to learn how to do that using AI. The third part is why. Why would anyone invest in this solution you came up with? So you saw a problem, you built a simple solution for the problem. Now we need to answer the why. How are you going to convince people of your solutions or going to invest upper management to actually implement this solution in a scalable manner and make it to production eventually? So when you have the answers to these questions, when to use AI, what's the opportunity, how I'm going to build a simple application to showcase the value, which is what we call the proof of concept, a simple application, not sophisticated, just simple enough to make people feel, oh, this is actually valuable for the problem I've identified. And then the why is to convince with numbers, money, of course, that's what organizations care about, that we should invest to develop this application further. When you have these three things, you have a strong business case. We call this a business case of the problem, the solution, and why I should care. So when you go to whoever is responsible for, like deciding, okay, we're going to invest in this project, they're sold, okay? And then, of course, at the end of the session, I know you will have many questions, especially about kinds of projects I've implemented. I'm happy to take your questions and to discuss with you what I've done and to discuss with you what you're thinking about in your industry. I'd like to hear your ideas and your perspectives from your industries. So that will be for the open Q&A. So without further ado, let's get started. The when. So in my sessions, I like us to have a situation and we're working together throughout the situation. So from now until the end of the session, we're going to be having a particular case study that we're going to develop the when, the how, and the what for, the why for, okay? So everything we're going to apply to this case study so you can do it on the job. So let's say we have an e-commerce app, right? We're responsible for an e-commerce app. It's called Buy It for online shopping, okay? Of course, this is not a real app. This is something I made up for the purpose of this session. So don't go and look for it. It doesn't exist. And of course, we know that in commerce, we have big players, right? We have, sorry, excuse me. We have Amazon, we have Alibaba, right? So these are also in online e-commerce. And what differentiates us is that we study our competitors, we listen to our users, and we implement special features for our users that are not in any other competitor, okay? So that's what makes us stand out. We listen to our users all the time, and we try our best to always give them what they want. Now, how do we listen to our users? What do you guys think? What are the channels through which we can listen to users? Let me know in the chat. Oh, I showed you the answer almost. So I'm not sure if I can see the chat. I just wanna, yeah. Yeah, so I can actually see it. So what do you guys think? What should we check to see what the users are saying, or what we should implement for the users? So to make the most out of this session, it's important to be interactive in the chat. But I will say the answer this time, but I expect you guys to interact more so you can make the most out of the session. So actually, what we need to see is the reviews, right? So people leave us reviews on the products. They leave us reviews about the website itself. Like you can see something like yellow pages. So there are basically, we want to gather user feedback, okay? So that's how we're able to analyze what our users want. And then based on what our users want, we can implement what they want, and we can make sure we retain them and don't lose them to our competitors. So we can continue being in the market, essentially, all right? Okay, so nice. We collect monthly feedback. So these are some examples of monthly feedback. And I want to ask you guys, based on this feedback, I want you to tell me what's the most important feature that must be implemented to stay competitive. If I'm gonna work on one thing right away, what would it be? What do you think? Let me know in the chat. Yes. So, oh, sorry, I just saw your answers now. Yeah, okay. I'm glad you're participating. So wish lists, yes, exactly, Ahmed. So we need to work on wish lists, right? I just want to see if there's a way to um, make myself able to see the chats without having to, like quit every time. Okay. Hmm. All right, that's better. Yeah, perfect. Now I can see the answers on the side. Yeah. So Abdulaziz, thank you for your suggestion. I was able actually to make it work from my laptop. All right, so the most important thing I need to gather is, after we agree that we should gather feedback, the most important feature we need to work on is wish lists, right? So we need to work on wish lists, or else we're gonna, our competitors are gonna win, right? And we don't want that. We want to continue being in the market. And how do we continue being in the market? By listening to users, okay? All right, so we don't want to lose our customers or our clients, so we're probably gonna implement wish lists. Now, I want to tell you what happens in practice. This is something I've worked on in Egypt's second largest commercial bank. It's called Bank Masr. This is something I've learned there, I've implemented there. So actually what happens is we get thousands of reviews, okay? Or tens of thousands of reviews, text reviews. And let's say we have a team of designers, and the designers are responsible to read these reviews, like they're responsible for designing the app and for researching new ways to, or new things to add to the app to make it more interactive, or to make users, so to make us retain users, okay? Now, the thing is, they're gonna have to read these reviews, right? Because we want a data-driven way to say what review we should implement. So they will have to read these reviews. Let's say there's 8,000 of them, and the designers are a team of 4. So actually, what we will have to do is that each person in the team, so 8,000 divided by 4, each person in the team has to read 2,000 reviews, and then check, what people are talking about. Are they talking about wish lists? Are they talking about Apple Pay? What are the topics people are discussing? And then after they find their topics, they're going to say, okay, this review is about wish lists. This review is about Apple Pay. This review is about accounts, and so on and so forth, right? And then in the end, they're gonna count the reviews, how many times they, how many times was each topic mentioned. And the topic that was mentioned the most, this is the most urgent one. So we're going to implement that one. But I want to ask you a question. Are you excited for such a task? Are you excited to read 2,000 reviews, find the topics, find the most important one? Yeah, right? So we actually found out when we studied, this problem, or when we studied this process, that reading 2,000 reviews a month takes up 50% of a designer's time. Imagine what they can do with half of their month. But instead, they're spending 2 weeks every day, every work day, reading reviews and labeling them manually. And this is frustrating because that's not the job of a designer. The designer is supposed to be, like recommending new features to use, designing these features and showing them to product owners, to software engineers, to make them real. They're not meant to be spending so much time on data, right? So what can we do? So this is a process that has repeated decision, right? Because there are repeated decisions happening, it's a process that can be automated. And how can we automate the process? We can automate it using AI. So when you're studying a process that's time-consuming, yes, Ahmed, when you're studying a process that's time-consuming, like let's say people are complaining that something is taking so much time, and then you see that they have to take particular decisions, similar decisions to reach the final solution, then this process can be automated using AI. So any process with high value, with steps that can be done, can be automated with AI, right? So when you're looking for a problem to solve with AI in your organization, ask yourself, is this repeated work with steps repeated work, and it involves human decisions? Because if yes, if it's something that's a decision that's repeated multiple times and the steps are more or less similar, then you can use AI to automate that solution. Okay, it's not a problem. That could be your solution. All right. So typically the AI is built using two parts. There are some rules, some business rules that we're informed about, and using intelligent models, of course, in conjunction. We usually use them both together. We enforce the business rules and we use models for the intelligent decision-making parts, okay? So that is the when to use AI. Does anyone have questions up to this point before we move on? Just want to make sure people don't have questions. Okay, so glad it's clear. All right, now the second part. So the first part was to identify a use case, right? So we've clearly seen that every time I read a review, like I read the entire reviews, I decide the topics, I manually label every review, there is repetition here and it's a high value task. So now I know that this is a problem worth exploring AI for, okay? So that's the first step, knowing your problem. Now we want to implement a simple solution, right? This is the how. So this is AI. So our goal now, I will tell you, there are two steps we need to do. First of all, we need to understand the decisions that are being automated. We call it a decision flow, by the way, the steps that you take from the input to the output. We call this a decision flow because we are taking a decision at every point. We take the input, we take decisions, and then in the end, we have our output. I take my review, I decide what it should be about. I give my final output, okay? So first of all, we model our decision flow. That's how by the way, that's like very, very very high level system design. That's a very important skill for people getting into AI. We're gonna do it now simply together. And then after I model my decision flow, I will actually show you that we can give it to the AI and tell it, please implement a simple solution for us. And it will implement something simple that you can try and feel the difference between labeling manually and getting AI to do the work for you, okay? So this solution, we call it a proof of concept because it's a simple solution that that AI made. Yeah, I know AI making AI solutions, but just, like simple enough to show the stakeholders and to show the upper management, you know what? Like telling the designers, you know what? I know you waste half of your time labeling reviews. Look at this. Check this out. You can give it some reviews and it will automatically label things for you and show you the analysis. Isn't that impressive? So that's the first part of convincing them to buy in what you're proposing. And the second part, of course, is the money. We're going to get to that after the proof of concept, okay? All right, so we have the AI. What should be the input for the AI? That's the first question we're going to ask. The input, as you mentioned already. So Ahmed is saying something. He's saying we can create automation system that will take all the reviews as input and feed it to the agentic AI that will extract the right keyword and label each reviews and priorities. Oh, Ahmed, you just gave an overview of what we're going to be doing together now, and prioritizes the most requested features from our users. This is enough as a proof of concept. Absolutely. Yes. So that's what we're going to be doing together, actually. We're going to do it step by step first because some people don't have the skill. By the way, you guys, what Ahmed just did, this is a skill, like developing a skill to know what will be the input, what will happen to it, what decisions will be taken, and what will be the output. And then after I know exactly what my AI system will do, I will give it to AI and tell it, please implement it in a simple way, because I'm trying to do a proof of concept, and then it's going to give you something interactive. I'm going to show you at the end once we're done. So we're going to be practicing this skill together of what the decision flow is. So for the inputs, as we mentioned, we're going to have the reviews themselves, right? What do you think the output should look like? And I want you to put yourself in the designer's place. They have to check what's the most important thing we need to do. So what will the output look like? Let me know in the chat. Yeah, so Sarah's saying a dashboard, right? So we want some form of dashboard that will show us the priorities, the features, the priorities per topic. So for example, for the wish list, we want to do the following. For the Apple Pay, we want to do the following. So we want to see for each topic, we want to see the most important topics sorted by priority. And we want to make sure that for each topic, we know what we want to do. For example, for the wish list, they want us to create a wish list feature. It doesn't exist. For the paying, they want us to create an Apple Pay like capability, payment capability, right? So let's see how we're gonna design an AI system that will go from this input to this output. And by the way we do it is that we analyze our own actions as users, okay? We see as a designer, when I get the review, what do the team and I do? What are the steps we take to reach the final output? So of course, you guys, very important when you're like designing your system, the decision flow. When you're checking the input, you need to be in alignment with the people you are trying to automate the work for. So when you're implementing something like this, you need to be talking closely and collaborating closely with designers to see how they're doing the work. And then you will document how they're doing the work step by step. And then you will have your decision flow. So we are not making things up here. We are observing what's already happening in real life. And then based on this observation, we're going to write, okay, from this is our input, this is the output they want to see. You have to always work closely with your stakeholders. And these are the steps they take to reach the final output. So I want you to assume here that we've been communicating with designers. That's why you will see that, moving from like a junior level to a senior level in the world of data and AI, one of the hallmarks of a senior is that they collaborate closely with their stakeholders because they make something that these stakeholders actually value and want, not just create because, agents are fancy, they're cool. Let me do like, the keywords you're hearing these days. Of course, it's important to have the technical skill, but what's even more important is that you're creating something for the stakeholders. So one of the key exercises you need to do with your stakeholders is to model the decision flow. What's the input? What are the steps that we take to go from input to output? Because this will give you a roadmap for implementing your AI system, okay? Is this part clear so far before we move on to like the steps from input to output? Any questions? Okay. Guys the rest of you who are not giving me a thumbs up, are you okay? Or have any questions? Don't try to ask, okay? Is someone raising their hand? If someone has a question, you can unmute and ask me.
Okay. I have a question. Please, Basant. I think that reaching to the main audience that would use the tool is really um, is really very hard process. Because, for example, I'm gonna do a tool for the business owners. However, the
Mm,
employees themselves gonna use the tool, not the business owner himself or herself. So at
yeah.
the end of the day, sometimes the needs which we are building the AI tool is
Mm,
really very needs some kind of qualifications, okay,
mm,
accuracy, data processing whatsoever that others would have to have in order to apply it using the AI tool.
mm. Okay, I see. So you're basically saying you're gonna be automating an advanced process that you want to be accessible to people who aren't specialists, right? Did I get you right?
Exactly, yeah. So, like here, we are assuming that you are talking to the designers, so on. So, okay,
Mm,
designers they are using technology, so they could be dealing easily with the tool themselves. That's
mm,
very easy for them. But what
mm,
if I'm doing something regarding to financials, for example?
mm, mm, mm,
So I have to have making this AI tool very simple, very simple in a way um uh, that will hurt, from my point of view, the objective
yeah.
that I built AI tool from the start, and from the beginning. Cause who's gonna
Mm,
use the AI tool? The employees, not the
yeah.
business.
Not the experts.
Yes.
Mm.
So that's an issue actually.
Yeah, it is. Here, what I like to do actually, I like to, in this case, when I get stuck in this situation, and that's something, of course, I got stuck with, especially, like currently, because I work in a regulatory body, and I
Mhm.
don't necessarily always have access
Technology.
to the experts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I do is I do two things. First of all, I try to network with experts in the industry. And I try to have a coffee chat with them, like, we can discuss AI, let's discuss your work. I try to learn from people, maybe they're not directly in my company, but they are experts, so they have the mindset. The second thing that actually helped me incredibly is that I see certifications for these people. For example, if I'm working with audit, I see the certifications for the tasks they're doing. So auditing have, for example, their own like certifications to be certified to work as an auditor.
Yeah.
And
CPA.
I check, sorry?
CPA.
Yeah, exactly that. And then I check I check YouTube playlists or like lessons about their work, so I understand exactly what kind of decisions they make and what part could be the most tedious. This actually helped me a lot to narrow down
Mm.
like exactly what kind of task we can help with, because and this is early in the audit process, because more tasks down the pipeline They are more, field work, like I need to go and actually do the work and analyze confidential data and whatnot
You
in
mean building
special
the
ways.
AI tool? You mean building the decision flow in a way that suits who's gonna use it, reach
Mhm.
the goal for whom already we are building the AI tool, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah. And yeah, my two sources really are to network with people who are experts in the industry already and to see their certifications and understand the process they do from these certifications. So
Hmm.
we watched videos about the process of auditing from the CPA.
That's a lot.
I,
Okay.
I know, but what are we gonna do? We need to understand the decision flow because if I don't know it, I don't know what to automate,
Yes. That's so much inspiring. Thank you, Basant. بجد.
You're welcome, Alaivas. I'm glad you found this advice useful. I know it's a lot of hard work, but it's really worth it because even when you're networking with experts, you have clarity on what they're doing, so you're able to fill in the gaps that you weren't able to fill in from online resources. So
To
that
make it
helps.
usable, like,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. In general, I feel like you have an interesting case study. Maybe we can talk about it after the session.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I'd like to do that, of course. Do you guys have any other questions before we model the decision flow here? It's simple here. Like we don't have, like design is simpler than serious things like audit. So it's very important in general, as I was just saying, to involve experts that are already doing the workflow perfectly or not perfectly. They're experts in the workflow because these are the people we're gonna observe, and this is the behavior we're gonna try to be modeling. What decisions do they take? What sources of data do they use? What kind of analysis do they do? What are their tasks? And we need to see the steps in which they do these things so we can automate this workflow, right? For even people who aren't experts in the field, but they're going to be using a tool that already models the thinking of experts in the field. So that is the goal out of this exercise, okay? All right. So let's think through this together actually. Um, review is simple enough for us to discuss. That's why I picked this case study. What's the first thing you're gonna do in the reviews? Now you have these 4 reviews. What's the first thing you're gonna do? I want you always also to look at the output and try to connect input and output. This really helps. So let me know in the chat what would be our first step. Yes, we need to analyze the inputs. Actually, we need to find what are the topics, right? Because how am I going to label the reviews if I don't know what to label with? I need to know what are the topics, okay? So first I will do something. I will find my topics first. So as a human, the first thing I do is I will, just like we did together, we looked at the topics and then we identified the topics like this, the exercise you just did a little bit ago, right? So we need to identify the topics. For example, here, when we looked at the reviews, we could identify that our topics are Apple Pay and wish lists. So what's our second step now that we know our topics? So our second step, actually, this one is now clear. Sarah, before prioritizing, let's take a step back. Let's look at the reviews. Now I know the topics from the reviews, but how will I prioritize? How would you do the prioritization? So far I have the reviews and I have my topics. That's the point we're at. Yes, thank you. So to get to the frequency, what do I need to do first? I need to label my reviews, right? So this review is about this topic. This review is about this topic. So I can count how many reviews are talking about the topic, right? Yes. So that's our second step. We have just assigned, topics, as you can see here. Sorry, let's see. The laser pointer, yes. We have assigned topics to the reviews. So that's the second step. Okay, before we count, I have a question for you guys. Do you think, for example, the review that says, good app, I'd like to just share a list of items with my sister, this review, and a review that says, terrible experience, I can't even track items I want, are they the same? Are they equal? Or there's one that's more urgent than the other? What do you think? Which one is more urgent, or are they both as equally urgent? The good app, I'd like to share a list of items, or terrible experience, I can't even track items I want. Should they be given equal weight? So Sarah, if I prioritize the good things, if I prioritize them, I will keep my users, right? But when someone is complaining, think about it. So I have a room, and this room is full of people. Some people are happy, but they're saying suggestions, but they're happy. So they're gonna stay. But some people are angry, and they're waiting at the door, and they're saying, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm done with this horrible experience. So which group of users am I more scared of losing? The people who are in the room and, like, they're happy, but they have further suggestions, or the people who are, neutral, or people who are literally like at the door and saying, I'm done with this application. It's horrible. I cannot use this anymore. Yes, exactly. So we need to give more, like listen more to people who are actually already angry. I don't want to lose them, right? At the end of the day, why are we doing this entire exercise? Because I don't want to lose my market share, right? I want to keep my user base. I want to keep everybody inside. So if I have to like listen to someone first, it will be the people who are at the door saying I'm leaving, because I don't want my user base to shrink, right? So so we're gonna actually label the sentiment of the review. That's what we're gonna do next. Just So the first one, can we have Apple Pay supported? It's neutral. The person is not angry. They're not delighted. They're neutral, right? The second one, good app. I just like to share a list of items with my sister. It's positive. The person is happy. She's saying good app. Just I have another suggestion. So she's happy. The third one, terrible experience. I can't even track items I want. This is very negative. Okay. The last one, I want to track wished items by my friends to gift on special days. It's neutral. So the neutral and the positive, we're not worried about them. What we're worried about is the negative. So what I can do actually, how can I give weights after I've done the labeling? How can I give weights? Let's say I will give a weight of 1, like I will count the first one once. I will count the wish list, the second one once. How should I count the third one? Should I count it also as 1 or give it a higher weight? What do you think? Yes, so let's say I'll give it a weight of 2. So now, based on the sentiment, I'm gonna give weights, right? That's my next step, actually. So as you can see here, 1 for the positive and the neutral, and 2 for the negative. So I can give it higher weight, okay? So now I'm gonna count, as you guys all mentioned already, I'm gonna count by frequency. So Apple Pay, we only have 1. The wish lists, I have 1 plus 2 plus 1, I have 4. So this makes sense. Wish list is the most requested, and the negative review has a high weight, so it will appear first. Now I have a question for you. So far, let's look at the output. We have the priority. So I have the topic and I have the priority. But does the output have only the topic, or does it have a description of what we need to do? By the way, guys, if you have questions, type them in the chat. I will answer questions. Yeah, I'll ask again. So far, Ahmed, we have the count of the topic and the count. But in the output here, I don't just have the topic, I have what to do in the topic. What to do. So I have the priorities here, thanks to the count. But do I have exactly what I need to do in the topic? Yes, we need a description. How can we get this description from the reviews? What can we do with the reviews? I want an overview, right? An overview of the reviews about wish lists. Yeah, we can do content analysis to see the most repeated, request. We can summarize what the reviews are talking about. So we know exactly we can do that. So we have options actually. Here I will go with summary because it's the simplest thing to do right now. But we can do absolutely content analysis to see what's repeated. So we take the most repeated, exactly, most repeated, yes. So that is an option. Another option is to summarize. Both are correct. They have their caveats, their pros and cons. It's a design choice, really. So let's say we're going to summarize per topic. So at the end, we have each topic, we have its priority. We have a sorted list of priorities by topics, and we know for each topic what action we need to take. So there you have it. These are the steps that the human does to reach, that we actually developed together now, just analyzing how we do the task, to go from input to output. So now that we have a flow, we can actually use AI to model it, right? Do you have any questions here before we move on to the next step? Any questions, you guys? Don't be shy to ask. Okay. So now that we're done with our decision flow, I will actually show you something that you can do with Claude. It's very simple. See me here. Yes, building the proof of concept. So actually, I gave Claude this diagram of the decision flow, the decisions we take. The decision flow is what I want to automate. And I want a simple proof of concept, a simple applications to show the designers so they're going to try and be like, oh my God, this does my job. I want this. I really want this. You know, that's what we want them to feel. That's the goal. Okay. So this is the prompt. I will give you a decision flow from input to output to create an AI application. I would like to be able to upload a file. So I want to upload the reviews, right? Apply the specified decision flow in the diagram. So I want to apply these, the decision diagram we tried together and get a dashboard, as Sarah said, showing me the top priority reviews and the summary about them. Please build this interactive application as a proof of concept. So I want to show you how I like the results of Claude actually. So check this out. This is the result, okay? So here it correctly identifies the steps that we set together. And here I can drop a CSV file, so the reviews, or I can paste my reviews here. So these are some dummy reviews I asked Claude to make for me. You can put some reviews here if they're not confidential. Please be aware that when you enter data here, it will go to the Claude database. So it's very important to check with in your organization if it's okay to do that, okay? Because for example, some regulatory bodies like where I work do not accept this. You cannot send, any data outside of the organization. In this case, you can try with dummy data like the ones I made up now. And let's click on Analyze. And let's see the result of this analysis. This is Claude, by the way. I'm using Claude. I'm using Sonnet 4.6. So you can use Claude with the same prompt I showed you with a screenshot of your decision flow after you've identified it and see the results. See the result. So this is the proof of concept. Let's look at topic breakdown. So we have 30 reviews, 17 of them are negative, 5 are positive, and 5 are positive, and the rest are neutral, okay? And we found 6 topics, And what are these 6 topics? They're the following: bugs and stability, payment options, sharing and social, search and discovery, UI and performance, and notifications, okay? So I want you to look at how it's prioritizing. It prioritized this because it had the most reviews and the most negative reviews. So we care not just about the count, I care about the negative, I give it more weight, right? So for example, this is about bug and stability, sorry. For the bug and stability, the recommended action is conduct a dedicated bug fix, post yada yada yada. So users frequently report crashes on Android, lost wish lists after login, random logouts, and so some bugs. So these are the bugs that I need to solve, and these are the most critical to retain my users. Let's check, for example, the second one. So the second one has 4 negative and 2 neutral, and none are positive. The priority action or the summary: integrate Apple Pay and Google Pay as top priority payment options, then expand to other regional alternatives. Okay? And so on. So when a designer actually goes to the first page and pastes the reviews and then sees that, the dashboard Sarah was talking about, and the actions to take for prioritized, you've just done their work that takes half of their time. So they're gonna like that, okay? So we showed this to them and to the upper management so they can try for themselves and feel the difference, okay? So that was the how, okay? I like how, the way saving the API key, that's the real meaning of a POP. Exactly. It's very rough. Okay. Now the why. This is the final part of our session. So we figured out a meaningful problem that requires manual repetition. We've identified the decision flow, how the experts do it. We've implemented a simple proof of concept using Claude. Now the cherry on top. Why? Why should I care? And in big organizations, or any organization in general, why is the money? Okay. So what's the return on investment? If I invest in this solution and develop it to be like beyond a proof of concept, what will I gain? So what do you think are some benefits that the organization will gain if I implement this? I want you to think of what we will win out of implementing this solution. Give me some ideas in the chat. Yeah, reduce the cost. So if we think about it, make the process, yes, we call this time to insight, that instead of taking time to find the insight, now it's instant. Very nice ideas, Ahmed. So some of the things is, of course, the users will be more satisfied because their feedback is getting implemented faster. That's something. So I'm retaining my users. Designers will work less hours. That's a reduction of cost. And designers will have the insight more quickly so they can implement quicker so the users can be satisfied, okay? What's very important, of course, is to convert these sentences into numbers, okay? As follows. So first of all, think about the benefits, like qualitatively, that I will get from implementing the solution. And then after you have a list of the benefits, think about the numbers I can use to quantify these benefits. For example, users will be more satisfied. We can measure the user satisfaction increase month on year on year. Yes, if the problems are solved, the retention is increased. So as Sarah's saying, I can measure the retention before and after using this solution and see the uplift, okay? The retention has increased, let's say, by 6%, okay? For example, designers will work less hours. We can say saving 75% of the time of the 10 designers. So I can actually know their salary multiplied by 10 and multiply by 75% to see how much I'm saving every month, okay? Designers will be able to have insight more quickly. So time to insight, that's the name of the metric. It will be from 4 months to instant. So instead of waiting for 4 months to know what I need to work on, I can know it instantly with AI. All right? You have questions here? All right. So just to recap that, Ahmed, yes, these are also good metrics to measure. So there are many metrics to measure. I just proposed some, but also what you said is valid, of course. So the successful business case formula, how can I have a strong proposal for a project, an AI project, to convince business and to convince the stakeholders so I can later implement and productionize it. First of all, I need to find a valid pain point. We mentioned that if the work is repetitive and the decisions that are being taken are the same, then this is a candidate. Second, I need to build a proof of concept. How do I do that? 2 steps. First of all, I identify my workflow, what steps I'm taking by collaborating and learning from the experts. Second, I take this workflow with a nice prompt asking, for a simple app on Claude so I can have something that's working, not perfect, but something that shows the value. Third, I have a problem now and the solution I need to convince, push, right? To do that, I need numbers. I need numbers that show the money that will be saved and the cost that will be reduced, right? Or the revenue that's going to be generated. So ROI, so pain point plus POC plus ROI, this is your best shot at implementing your next AI project in your organization. We have 10 minutes for open Q&A. If you have any questions, I'll be here for 10 minutes. And these are my social media handles if you want to follow me or talk to me about this session in general, or yeah, if you want to follow like the content I make. I will be receiving questions now. So if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute and ask in general.
Hey, Vasant, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Everything is okay. Actually, I need to ask you because actually I'm working as an AI product manager, okay, in a company in Europe.
Yeah.
And one of my
Yeah.
latest projects was implementing AI assistant or AI chatbot that is integrated to our platform. And like I was searching in a way or another, how can I like measure the customer satisfaction for chatbots, or the influence actually that this chatbot is doing for our platform, or how this chatbot can reduce the cost or adding some value for our operations and all of that. So like if you have any insights and you can share with me, this would be very helpful.
So of course, what I like to do here, because this is a bit tricky, you're creating something that's not solving a direct problem. But what I would do is I would create a small like user group, and I will have the users. So I will get, for example, the users, and I would get 10 questions, and I will have the users answer the question once in the old way and once with the chatbot and rate their experience. Okay. So let's say this group of users also is 10 users, not many. Like let's say I'll give them a voucher or something as a thank you for their time. I will collect 10 questions, frequently asked questions. I will have them answer with the chatbot and have them answer in the way, like whatever they do, they call the customer service, they send an email, whatever that is. I will measure 2 things. First of all, I will measure the time it took for them to get an answer, to have a resolved ticket. Okay. Using the chatbot and using the customer service, like the typical workflow of the customer service. That's the first thing I will measure. The second thing I will measure is I will have them rate their experience from 1 to 10, answering their questions in the manual way versus using the chatbot. So I will get their scores. I will get an average of their scores for the experience, and I will get an average of the time spent, so I can compare the user satisfaction with the process currently versus with the chatbot, and the time taken to resolve a ticket. These are important metrics for the current with the current workflow versus using the chatbot. So these are the 2 things I will measure in a focus group. But you need a focus group here, absolutely. That's what I think.
That's a very good approach, actually. Yeah, I will test it. Thank you.
You're welcome. I've done something similar in the bank, because I also had a research assistant. I wasn't sure exactly how to quantify it, so I did exactly what I'm telling you. The time it takes to resolve a question and how they're satisfied they are with the quality of the experience. So, and that's how I measured, and I'm able to say, for example, confidently in front of, upper management, this got the highest score out of all of our other chatbots available, for example. Or I'm able to say this saves 30% of their time, of a team of like 30, for example. It matters. So that's that was my approach to a problem in the bank, and it worked. They were convinced with the numbers, and that's what we care about, so they can invest.
Okay, that's very good actually. Yeah, I think I will like start to apply this approach, and I will see the results. Like,
Yeah.
you have to, if you like have a hypothesis or something like that, you have to validate. You have to validate your idea. So yeah,
Yes.
I think I have to do it.
Yeah, I was also gonna mention something actually. I don't remember the name of the statistical test. You can check online, but there's a statistical test you can do to validate that this would work for the population too. Like get a significant p-value and say things as they are now are not acceptable. And you know what? Based on what the user feedback, we reject the null hypothesis, and alternative hypothesis, which is the chatbot, is actually significant. These results are significant, which means when you go to business, you can say, you know what, this applies to a population, so to our users. We were able to validate that statistically. I think that will also, be convincing for them if they care, to that is generalizable. So Sarah is saying, I think you should make the flow of user answers in terms of questions like what Claude's doing, for example, not just a regular chat. Yeah, you mean, for example, when it's saying it shows you the tools, right? So actually, I wanted to continue, but I thought this was a bit advanced for the audience, that we can convert every part into a tool or a model. And yes, we can show the users where we are at the workflow and what's going on. Of course, this would add to user transparency. And sometimes users don't know how to question. Yeah, actually, here we can solve this problem by there are two ways we can solve this problem. We can first get our data. So if we have a data set with, the information in the guide, we can get our data and use an LLM to generate fake answers. It's called hide, I think, if I remember correctly, the technique. We can generate fake questions, sorry, based on the data that we have. And then when the user asks a question, we get the closest question and say, is this what you meant? So this is a way to solve this problem, if they don't know what kind of questions to ask. They can start, with whatever they know, and we look at the fake questions based on our documents. Did you mean to ask this question? So that's one approach. Yeah, another approach is the drop-down menu, absolutely. I think it's important as well, like when you're trying to limit their, it's a guardrail basically. When you don't want them to, like ask any open question, when you want them to ask within particular topics, then you can force them to choose from the drop down, like what's your concern, and ask there, and use the data sources that are relevant to that drop down. So you can do that if you have issues with RAG, like if RAG is unable to identify the content area, you can do that to make things simpler. That's what we mentioned in the beginning when we said the system is first, it's rule-based and model-based. So we used the two together to get the best out of both worlds, We don't just use AI, we don't just use rules, we use them as a hybrid in code to produce the best results. Yes, absolutely. Yes, thank you, Sarah, for the insight. So we have 2 more minutes for questions. Do you guys have any question? Or any interesting points to discuss? Okay. In general, feel free to talk to me later on my socials if you want to discuss. I'm happy to discuss these things always. So yeah, we're done. Thank you guys for your participation on a Thursday evening. I'm gonna stress that. I enjoyed giving this session so much, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you. Thank you for your feedback, Ahmed and Sarah. Bye, everyone.
bye. Is there other sessions? I'm sorry, I was running late.
It's okay. I'm not sure actually if the academy is gonna do other sessions. Yeah, that's not something I'm not sure about, unfortunately. You can ask them.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Is this session recorded?
Yes, we will upload it actually to YouTube so you can see it again. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you,
Thanks, Mazen.
thank
Bye.
you.
Ciao.
Yeah. Have a nice weekend. Bye.
You too. Bye.